More than 200 years ago, Americans fought a revolution. A revolution against big government.
He has erected a multitude of new offices and has sent hither swarms of officials to harass our people and eat out their substance.
George III and his bureaucrats taxed and controlled their lives until the people said, enough. The government in Washington, D.C. makes you nostalgic for old King George. The royal tax collectors took about 25% from our ancestors. This year, government at all levels will extract 50% of our money to waste. And not gently. IRS agents use wiretaps, mail openings, informants, disguises, guns, chains, and jails to get every last dime. Meanwhile, at the Federal Reserve, 12 faceless bureaucrats decide your economic future in secret. How much inflation should there be next year? What should interest rates be? How much of your savings should be transferred to politicians and their favored big banks? The Supreme Court, where individual rights are supposed to be protected, think it's fine if government invades our financial privacy, spies on us in our bedrooms, regulates church schools, and restricts our free speech. Meanwhile, at the Congress, everything is up for grabs.
Welcome to the William Wagener Show. On issues the network media is usually too afraid to tackle. I'm Pamela Wistrom, tonight's co-host. And now for the host and star of this 14-year weekly TV show, the one and only William J. Wagener. Woo!
Listen, my children, a new show here of a new kind of Paul Revere. His name is David Roach, and he's far from California. But we're going to bring him into the studio tonight just for you people. So I hope you pay attention, because some of you are getting hosed down, and I mean, I'm taking my hat off for you already. You're going into court and asking for justice under your corporate name, and you don't have a clue why they have your name in all caps. Welcome, David Roach. So, hello, David.
Hello, William.
David is more than 1,000 miles. We're bringing him into the California studio here through the miracle of Skype. David, can you tell me why people should not answer to their all corporate name with all capital letters when they're hosed into court?
Well, the short story of it is that the courts are not supposed to, these lower courts, we're not supposed to be in them. They are only to deal with corporations and that. And when they call that name, they're calling the all caps legal fiction, a corporation. It's a receipt for what's called a usufruct trust. It is not your birth certificate. It does not denote you. This is the reason why when they sent it to you, you got that little piece of paper with it, or it said right on it, do not use as ID, because it wasn't you.
Interesting. Tell me, David, when did they create this concept of all capital letters? Because I looked at some old lawsuits from the 1790s in a federal court that went to the Supreme Court. They didn't have their names, and they're all handwritten, but they weren't all in all caps. And even some in the 1870s and 1880s, they didn't use the all caps in all the courts. So when did this fiction of creating us as corporations, when did that fiction start?
That started in 1933 after the bankruptcy.
You mean during the Great Depression, America went bankrupt?
Oh, yes.
People think I was pals with George Washington, Jefferson, but actually I was born much later. I wasn't even born in 1933, so you're supposed to laugh, people.
Well,
we got a sad audience here.
We're pretty sure at this point that by 1936 that there was no gold left in Fort Knox. The bankers had already taken all of it.
So what was it that Ron Paul, when he was a young congressman and he demanded to see the gold in Fort Knox, They took him in there. They opened up a vault, and he saw something. He told me he saw some gold bars. He saw some silver stuff. But the vault wasn't full, and he didn't actually go in to lift any bars out and looked behind the bar to see what was behind those.
Just because there's a little bit of look good there doesn't mean it belongs to the American people.
Okay.
We were sold out a long time ago.
So in 1933, after only 20 years of the Federal Reserve being in place,
Yeah.
the bank gangsters, and people, you have to read the book by Griffith called The Creature from Jekyll Island. It explains the massive conspiracy, and this is not theory, people, this is not conspiracy theory, this is conspiracy fact, and it's well documented. And before Griffith, there was a guy named Mullins, and Griffith got a lot of his information from Mullins. You got to go read that book so you understand that America has been under attack by the bank gang. I call them the bank gangsters. We've been under attack ever since the revolution, and the treaty was signed in 1783. They never gave up because they think of us as the colonies, the bankers, the British bankers. Don't you agree with that, David?
We still are a British colony.
Well, they think we are, but I grew up as a Boy Scout thinking I belonged in the United States of America, and I was red, white, and blue, a free man.
Well, yeah, but see, if you go to the Treaty of Versailles and you read the Treaty of Versailles, it denotes and tells you there specifically that we are still a British colony.
What year was the Treaty of Versailles?
The Treaty of Versailles was, and I don't think they meant for that to be in there, for that little information to be out. What people don't know is that the bar itself, the British Accredited Registry, or also called the Lawyers Guild, was created by the bankers.
Explain, because I'm sure even some lawyers watching this tonight here in Santa Barbara County are a little shocked to hear that.
When they created the UCC, they had to create an organization of people who were trained in the UCC. And that is how the bar came about.
The Universal Commercial Code. And the UCC is adopted by Switzerland and most of Europe. You pretty much can't do business if you don't have lawyers that understand the UCC.
Right. You can't do business internationally if you don't have people who understand the UCC. Otherwise, you'll lose your shirt tails.
Right. I remember when I went to law school at Western State University Law School down in Orange County, in our first year, there was a class in just the UCC, just studying the UCC. That was a whole, I think it was a 2-credit course. You had to learn that in the first year of law school. And I'm not a lawyer, by the way. I never took the bar, and I don't want to take the bar.
Well, you can practice law without being a member of the bar.
Yeah, explain that to people.
First of all, if you go to Sims versus Ahern's, the Supreme Court ruling.
Sims versus Ahern.
Yep. It tells you that they cannot license any occupation of common right. They don't have the authority to do it. Okay? The practice of law is an occupation of common right. And then if you go to...
I didn't know that.
If you go to Swear versus the Board of Examiners, the Supreme Court stated right there that nobody can license the practice of law.
Wow.
It's a huge scam that they pull on the people. And part of it goes back to the fact that they're a communist organization, the bar is, and they're in charge of our law.
You're not talking about the separate bar that was founded with only communist members of the bar, that small bar association, I forget the name of it. You're saying all bar members, California Bar, Virginia Bar, Wisconsin.
The entire bar association.
It's all of them are communist.
It's one giant national bar association around the world, and all it is different legs of the bar in different countries. So even the AMA, the American Bar, is part of a communist organization, and they were denoted so in 1950 by the 81st Congress because they were caught shipping ammunition to Adolf Hitler and caught attacking the American public school system in order to dumb down the children.
Well, they certainly succeeded with the school system, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. They made it a mess. I mean, I talked to a kid here a while back ago that he had graduated school and he didn't even know what our Constitution was.
Yeah, that's pretty sad. Tell us again about the Usufruct Trust.
The Usufruct Trust, the word usufruct, when you look it up in law, what it tells you is it is a way by which you enjoy the means of another. The reason this usufruct is created is because after the bankruptcy, the people were securitized for the federal corporation, also what they call their government's debt. See, when the bankruptcy happened, the government ceased to exist except for in name only. And they became a federal, they were already a corporation. You go to Title 28, 3002, Section 15A, and it tells you that they are a federal corporation, not a government.
Title 28.
Yep, Section 3, it's 3002.
We'll have to look that up. I think I will take time to read it. So that's what created the corporate fiction of us individuals as corporations.
Well, that's where the government got denoted as a corporation. That's the government that's a corporation.
That's the government's corporation. So when we get a letter saying, "Dear Mr. Wagener, you have not paid your speeding ticket," and they send us my name on all caps, what should I do with that?
Number one, when you go into court and the judge calls your name, you're not that. You need to tell him that you're the authorized signature for the name.
So I'd go into the traffic court and say, "Hey, Judge Cullens," or whoever they happen to stick in a black robe, "I'm the authorized signator for the name you call, but I am not that entity."
Right. Because if you claim to be that name, you're committing a fraud. Because that name is an all caps corporate name. See, only corporations are put in all capital letters.
I understand that. I'm not sure most human beings out there in Never Never Land of Santa Maria and Santa Barbara County understand that, but I understand that. Okay, so now I've told them I'm the signature, I'm the authorized signator for that name you called, but I am not that name. And they say, "Well, what's on your birth certificate?"
No, that's just asking. You mean that receipt for the usufruct trust you're trying to lien? Because, see, that's what they're doing. They're making all kinds of money. These lower courts, after the bankruptcy, and I emailed you a whole list of laws that deal with this, they were supposed to be discharging the nation's debt because we had no lawful money left.
Wow. By 1933, we had no lawful money left?
No, other than like your coin money, your silver dollars, and your coins. Everything went to be in Federal Reserve notes. All the gold certificates and that. If you tried to take them up to the bank and change them in, they wouldn't change it.
But we still had silver certificates. We had silver certificates to 1963 or 64.
You try to change one in, you couldn't get silver for it.
Not today.
Unless you got a silver dollar.
No, not today. But in 1962, I heard that they were going to do away with the right to exchange your silver certificate, which was a Federal Reserve note. They were going to do away with your right to trade that in and get an actual physical silver dollar. So I grabbed all the cash I'd saved and I went down to our local bank, I think it was the Bank of Sturgeon Bay, and I went up to the teller and I said, "I got $18 here. I want silver dollars for them." And she said, "Well, we're out, but I'll have to go in the safe." She went back in the safe and came out with a roll of Carson City, brand new, never been opened roll. And it broke my heart. It was a roll of 20 silver dollars that had never been opened, still had the label on it. Nobody had ever opened that, but they were having a run on silver dollars, so they had ordered some in from wherever they regionally store them. And she broke open, took 2 out, and gave me the other 18. And I was just amazed. I had uncirculated Carson City silver dollars from Carson City, Nevada. That was in 1962. The next year, I found some more certificates. I went back to the same bank in I think it was December of 63. Couldn't get a silver dollar for them anymore. Or was it 64? I think it was 64. Yeah, after I graduated from high school. And I couldn't get a silver dollar for it anymore. So they took the gold out in 30s. They took the silver out 30 years later in the 60s. And all we got now is junk nickel and whatever they use, nickel copper coins, and paper. And it's fiat money because they can create it willy-nilly whenever they feel like it. I want to have that power, David.
Well, there's been over 6,000 fiat currencies in recorded history.
And they've all failed except the one we're using right now.
They've all went to zero.
Yeah, they all went to zero value, and ours rapidly going to zero value because I remember, you may not be old enough, but I'm old enough. I remember taking a silver dime, going down to the Donna Theater in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, and for a 10-cent silver dime, I got to see the matinee. During the week, I think the price was 15 cents. But on Saturday and Sunday, when the kids are out of school, for a thin silver dime, I got to see the whole matinee. And some days, they had a promotion where you got popcorn and to go in for a silver dime, and they gave you free popcorn. Catch was, when you got the free popcorn, you got thirsty, so then you wanted to buy a drink. And that was another 15 or 20 cents. So they got your money. But this use of Frex trucks, is that stated in the law in 1933 as part of the bankruptcy?
You find out about you basically just do a search on Usufruct, and when you go through it, you start finding out things, and then pretty soon you're able to put it all together, because it's something that's really, trust law for one is really difficult to understand. It's a real pain in the neck. But the Usufruct trust, we discovered it when we found out about the Seskay Trust. Thanks to the Seskay Trust, we are all considered dead in the eyes of the law until we come back and claim to be as the living person, or the living soul. They basically look at us as though we're dead when we walk in that courtroom.
Well, in many cases, your money's dead because they're going to take it all once you get in there. One way or another, they're going to find a way to find you guilty. It bothers me that the prosecutors work for the government, the judge works for the government, and often if you get a public defender, he also works for the government. Who's on your side?
Well, see, this is why you're only supposed to be taken to court in federal court, because it's a conflict of interest for the state judge to hear your case, and it's actually, they're not even supposed to be taking you to court because you're the one who has the 11th Amendment immunity. Have you read the 11th Amendment?
I have.
Okay, it says quite clearly that they cannot pursue any suit in law and equity. They can't just go after any suit. And it says that no foreign agent or foreign state can bring claims against one of the American people. That's the short version of it, just explaining it. And when you start looking into law, you find out, like in Title 8, it states very clearly that when the judge when they take their oath, they become a foreign state. And the state's foreign to us as well. So the state ain't supposed to be bringing charges. But they've dumbed the people down enough that the state's bringing charges.
Well, they certainly are. When you find yourself in a court as a defendant in a state court, what should a reasonable man, going back to the reasonable man test, what should a reasonable man do?
Reasonably, he should automatically challenge jurisdiction under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution, and demand to know the nature and cause of the case, and tell them that they're lacking a subject matter jurisdiction and that they don't have jurisdiction over the natural private person.
Okay, and let's supposing Joe Blow goes into court and he says under Article 1, Section 8, line 17, I challenge your jurisdiction, and you don't have jurisdiction over the
natural
living person. He says, well, do you have a birth certificate? And you show the corporate birth certificate that shows your name in all caps. You're dead right there then, aren't you?
Right. Now, see, what I like to do is I've got this little dude right here that has both certificates on it. And if the people can see that, they can see there's two separate certificates there.
Yeah, you emailed that to me. I looked at that.
Yeah. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt there's two different certificates.
I didn't know that until you told me last week. That was the first time I'd ever heard of that. And I've actually been in our county registrar's vault looking at actual, they don't let you do that anymore. They've changed the laws. But when I was doing genealogy, I went in and looked and touched the physical recorded birth certificates that were typed up when I was born, when my father and mother were born, when my grandparents were born. I actually touched them. Now they won't let you do that, and I could see what they were.
Right. Now, see, this is one of the other little gotcha things, okay? When your mother now, when a child's mother goes in and they sign that certificate of live birth for the state, you're going to notice that they only have the mother sign. They don't have the father sign most of the time. Sometimes they do, but most of the time they don't. And it's always with the mother's maiden name. It's not with her married name. And the other side of that is that when she's doing that, because under the law, I sent you some things that showed that when a woman and a man get married, everything that belongs to the woman becomes the man's property because the state says that women can own nothing because they need subsidy. So she doesn't have a lawful ownership or claim to the child. And once they've signed it over, and you watch when they announce the birth in the paper, you go look, all the births are announced in the lost and found section of the paper.
I actually haven't looked at that. I don't think they publish those in our paper anymore. They used to publish those, but I don't think they do it anymore. I don't know. I don't read our local propaganda newspaper. I call it the rag sheet of Santa Maria. They
If
don't.
you're using mainstream media whatsoever, it's propaganda. It's garbage.
Yeah, that I came to that conclusion during the Michael Jackson trial. Up until 2005, January of 2005, I had serious doubts about whether we were being given the truth on ABC, Fox, CNN, you name it, BBC. I just saw a lot of things that just didn't smell right, didn't sound right, and occasionally I had personal information that contradicted what we were being told. But when I watched the 2005 Michael Jackson case, I was in the courtroom every day for 5 months, sitting right behind the Jackson family, and I quickly realized what they're reporting on Fox, CNN, was only 1/3 of what was happening in the courtroom. The serious third, was that the defense was proving all the prosecutor's witnesses, except a few that proved Michael was innocent. Most of the prosecuted witnesses were caught fabricating lies. They were forced to eat their own lies. But you didn't see that on Fox, CNN, ABC. All you heard is, oh, he's accused, he's accused, he's accused. And that's when that trial was over. I was glad. I was doing my own TV show already 5 years. And that's why I started doing it. I didn't see truth coming out on television anymore.